Breaking news right now at 11. The FBI executes a search warrant.
Filing this search warrant earlier today, detailing why deputies needed to go in home and what they actually found when they went inside.
When Hulk Hogan was found dead inside his Florida mansion, the story seemed simple, a tragic end to a wrestling icon.
The professional wrestling and entertainment star Hulk Hogan has died.
And died of a suspected cardiac arrest.
But as investigators began searching the house, small details started to surface.
We will not be answering any questions, but we will provide additional information when it becomes available.
Something about the scene didn't add up, and by the time the FBI finished their review, one photograph in the evidence log changed everything.
And he said something to me that really took me aback.
And if he was interviewed and the police have that body camera footage, why the family has not seen the footage yet?
I don't want to get into it, you know.
The morning that ended Hulkamania. On the morning of July 24th, 2025, Clearwater, Florida, woke up to the kind of quiet that makes everything feel suspended in time. The streets were calm, the sky was bright, and the air was heavy with heat. Inside one of the city's most recognizable homes, nothing seemed out of place. Yet before noon, that sense of calm would break apart in a way no one expected. According to reports, Sky Daly, Hulk Hogan's wife, returned home from a wellness retreat earlier than planned. It was a little after 10 a.m., several hours after Hogan's last confirmed text message the night before. She expected to find him awake and following his usual morning routine. Hogan was known for discipline. He meditated, worked out, and spent time in his gym almost every morning. Friends later told investigators that he treated every sunrise like another round in the ring. But that morning, something immediately felt wrong. The house was too quiet. Sky entered through the side door, calling his name as she stepped inside. There was no sound, no movement, not even the faint hum of background music. The stillness pressed in as she walked down the long hallway that led to the gym. Normally, she would hear the rattle of weights or the steady rhythm of training. That morning, there was nothing at all. When she reached the gym at the far end, the room looked just as he had left it the day before, spotless and orderly. Then her eyes fell to the floor. Hulk Hogan was lying motionless beside the bench press. His eyes were half open, his skin pale. Sky dropped to her knees and shook his shoulder, calling his name again and again. When he did not move, she ran for her phone and dialed 911. The call recording, later reviewed by investigators, captured her voice shaking as she gave their address and begged for help. Paramedics arrived within minutes, rushing straight to the gym. Police officers followed close behind, logging the event as a medical emergency while activating their body cameras. One medic checked Hogan's neck for a pulse while another monitored his breathing. There was none. They began CPR immediately, cycling through compressions as equipment was set up. The defibrillator pads were placed, oxygen administered, and vitals monitored throughout. For more than 20 minutes, the team worked in shifts, calling out rhythm and time as they tried to restart his heart. At 11:17 a.m., the lead medic looked up from the monitor and confirmed the result. Hulk Hogan was pronounced dead. News of his death spread fast. Local police secured the scene while journalists gathered outside the gates. Within hours, headlines across the country announced that the wrestling legend had died of natural causes. Many cited his age and decades of physical strain as likely factors. Fans flooded social media with tributes, recalling the hero who had once defined an era of entertainment. But according to emergency responders, a few small details stood out. One paramedic told investigators that the body felt cooler than expected for a recent collapse. The house looked too perfect, too calm. Even at first glance, it did not feel like the scene of a sudden tragedy. By the afternoon, quiet conversations had begun among local officers. Something about the entire situation felt off. A few of those details would later be noted in the preliminary report, prompting Clearwater police to reach out to federal authorities for support. What began that morning as a personal emergency was quietly shifting into something larger: the sterile gym and the disabled system. FBI evidence teams arrived with a simple goal. They would confirm a natural passing, document the room, and clear the scene. That changed as soon as they entered the gym. The room did not look used, it looked prepared. The benches were spotless, and the metal bars shone under the lights. The mats were clean, with no marks, chalk, or signs of recent activity. No bottles, towels, or gym tape were left behind. According to later reports, several responders noticed a faint chemical smell in the air, as someone had wiped the room clean only hours earlier. Technicians began the standard procedure, photographing the room in wide, medium, and close-range shots. Each picture was logged with exact time, lens type, and location. They dusted handles and buttons, expecting to find smudges from daily use. The powder stayed clean. Few prints appeared on any surface. One technician glanced at another, confused. For a private gym supposedly used every morning, the absence of fingerprints made no sense. Then the focus shifted to the security system. This mansion was protected by one of the most advanced setups in the city. There were motion sensors, entry keypads, and cameras linked to both local storage and a cloud backup. But when agents accessed the main control panel, the logs told a different story. The entire system had been shut down manually from inside the house. The action took place just after midnight, hours before the emergency call. Power levels were steady, routers were active, and the network never went offline. Whoever had disabled those devices knew the codes and wanted no record of that night. One agent muttered that it felt like someone had erased time itself from the room. What should have been a place of energy now felt like a display for an audience that never arrived. Supervisors quickly reclassified the case from routine to active evidence. The first photo added to the official log showed the gleaming gym floor and a black monitor screen frozen on its last command. From there, investigators knew what had to come next. They would trace every wire, every signal, and every hidden command that might explain who silenced the house before dawn. The digital trail and the call from nowhere. On the night of July 21st, 3 days before the emergency call, Hulk Hogan received a phone call that lasted less than a minute. According to investigators, it was the last incoming call before his death. Sky Daily told officials that she was in another room when it happened. She said he answered, stayed silent for nearly the whole duration, spoke only one word, and then ended the call. From that moment, his mood changed. She noticed he seemed tense and distracted, as if something had suddenly unsettled him. When the phone was taken into evidence, agents followed standard procedure. They powered it down, logged it, and created a data copy for examination. The number that had appeared on the screen was not connected to any contact or service Hogan used. Investigators said the call did not come through a normal mobile network. It used an internet path that jumped across several countries before landing in Florida. Cyber analysts explained that the caller had hidden behind a string of overseas servers, making the source almost impossible to identify. One expert described the setup as very advanced, the type used by people who know how to cover their digital tracks. Investigators secured a court order to access Hogan's phone records and the data held by his service provider. The logs confirmed the call had come in exactly when it appeared on his phone, matching the timestamp down to the second. But when analysts tried to trace where it came from, the trail disappeared. Each server the call had passed through automatically deleted its records after a short time. The final server in the chain cleared its data within an hour of the call, leaving investigators with no way to see who had placed it or from where. Agents then looked for clues elsewhere. They checked Hogan's voicemail, recent messages, and encrypted applications. Nothing unusual appeared. The same pattern of internet routing had not contacted any other phone in the area, suggesting it was used only once. One internal report stated that the account tied to the call was created that night and deleted minutes later. To the FBI, it looked like a one-time voice that appeared, delivered a message, and disappeared. Attention turned to what might have been said. Friends told investigators that Hogan had seemed calm in the days before, but had avoided long conversations after the call. He trained alone and kept his phone out of reach. Some believe it was a threat, others think it was a warning. There is no confirmed recording or transcript, and the single word he said in reply has not been disclosed. On the official case chart, the call is marked as Event 03 Alpha. Investigators describe it as the first unexplained signal in a timeline that keeps breaking in the same place. To understand its meaning, they would soon have to look deeper into Hogan's past to find what could make 1 minute of silence so powerful. Patterns in a lifetime of chaos. They began building a full behavioral and financial profile, looking for old conflicts, hidden debts, or personal grudges that could help explain what happened in Clearwater. Analysts started by tracing Hogan's public and private history. His career had spanned 4 decades, from wrestling rings and movie sets to endorsement deals and lawsuits. He had been celebrated as a national icon and criticized as a man surrounded by controversy. According to internal behavioral summaries, agents collected everything they could: court documents, tax filings, partnership agreements, and archived interviews. They laid the materials out in chronological order, searching for patterns that connected financial trouble with emotional strain. The deeper they went, the more complicated his history became. Several familiar names surfaced. Former business partners, lawyers, and old promoters were quietly contacted for new statements. Some cooperated, others refused to speak. The information they gave painted a picture of a man who had learned to guard himself carefully. Evidence suggested that he questioned contracts repeatedly and insisted on documentation for even the smallest deal. Investigators found the same cautious attitude in personal correspondence. Friends told them that fame had made him careful to the point of isolation. Every betrayal had taught him to save proof before giving trust. Further digging revealed a string of unresolved disputes about royalties, image rights, and property ownership. According to one financial report, several disagreements remained active long after his official retirement. Inside storage receipts and archived emails, agents found proof that Hogan had recently started organizing old documents again. Those who knew him best said he was archiving everything, from film contracts to private letters, though no one knew the real reason. Investigators began to wonder if those files contained more than personal records. Some believed he might have been collecting evidence to protect himself or planning to release information that others wanted buried. Others thought it was simply a way of controlling his story one last time. Whatever his reasons, the inquiry had changed. What began as a simple death investigation had become a psychological and financial study of a man who had spent years building paper walls around his life. Analysts believed those records might hold the key, but before they could draw any conclusions, the Bureau needed to confirm the physical facts. The next step was to return to the body itself, and that was where science began to raise questions no one could yet answer. The body and the questions science couldn't answer. After several unusual findings in the initial investigation, federal agents attended the medical review to observe every step of the examination. The autopsy began early the next morning at a secure facility in Clearwater. According to reports, the process took longer than expected because of Hulk Hogan's complex medical history. Over the years, he had undergone more than 25 surgeries, including joint replacements, reconstructive procedures, and a recent 4-level spinal fusion. Each scar and implant had to be carefully documented, and each could have affected the readings of his body's internal systems. The medical team started with the standard toxicology screen. The results were clean. There were no traces of alcohol, painkillers, or any controlled substance. For a man with such a long surgical history, the absence of medication surprised investigators. That detail alone would not have raised alarm, but what came next did. Advanced tissue tests identified unusual chemical compounds on his skin and hair. According to laboratory notes, these compounds were consistent with industrial-grade cleaning agents, not typical household products. No one could explain why they were present. The finding led to two working theories. Some experts believe the chemicals could have been transferred during emergency resuscitation, possibly from disinfected equipment. Others said the residue pattern was too uneven for that and suggested possible contact with the substance before first responders arrived. The uncertainty created tension in the room. One examiner later admitted the results did not fit the body in front of us. Meanwhile, forensic analysts began checking Hogan's digital health data. His smartwatch and home monitoring devices automatically recorded pulse, temperature, and movement. The readings painted a timeline that did not match what witnesses had said. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the watch registered a sudden and complete drop in heart rate and body temperature. Those values stayed flat for hours before Sky Daily's 911 call at 10:46 a.m. Investigators labeled the file Temporal Discrepancy 01. The contradiction left both medical staff and agents unsettled. Either the watch malfunctioned, or Hogan had stopped breathing long before anyone entered the gym. There was no clear proof of tampering, and no one could explain the long gap between the recorded time of death and the emergency response. As reports went up the chain, the question shifted from what killed Hulk Hogan to when it truly happened. If science could not align the body with the timeline, the answer had to be hidden somewhere else in that house. The hidden architecture beneath the mansion. During the second forensic sweep, investigators decided to scan the entire property for hidden spaces. It was a standard step in complex cases, but no one expected it to reveal anything out of the ordinary. According to reports, ground-penetrating radar detected a hollow area beneath the mansion's east wing. The readings suggested a rectangular void, roughly the size of a small garage, directly below the gym. The finding immediately raised questions, since the official blueprints of the property showed nothing beneath that section of the house. Engineers were called in to confirm the anomaly. They traced the signal to a section of the gym wall behind the weight racks. At first glance, the wall appeared solid and identical to the rest of the room. But when they measured the depth with thermal imaging, the results showed otherwise. Behind the outer layer of drywall was a reinforced structure. Its temperature was lower than the rest of the wall, indicating a hollow space hidden behind it. Investigators removed the outer covering and revealed a thick steel panel that had been sealed from the inside. After several hours of careful work, technicians found a concealed release mechanism near the baseboard. Activating it exposed a narrow stairwell descending into the ground. The steps were made of rough concrete and coated in dust. At the bottom stood a sealed steel door. When they breached the lock, a cold draft poured out, carrying the scent of rust and old air. The team paused before stepping inside. The space beyond was compact, no larger than a garage, but its contents were precise and deliberate. Rows of metal cabinets lined the walls, each labeled with dates and short codes. Several external drives were stacked beside a computer tower, which was still slightly warm, suggesting it had been used shortly before the discovery. A workbench stood in the center, covered with papers, folders, and handwritten notes that matched Hogan's writing. Evidence photographers documented every surface, numbering each file and label. The agents on site later said the room did not feel like storage. It felt like someone's private archive, built to stay hidden. It was around this time that a different story began circulating online. According to unverified posts, 5 bodies had been found buried beneath Hogan's property during the FBI search. The rumor spread quickly, amplified by fan forums and conspiracy pages claiming that the vault below the gym had once been used to hide people connected to old scandals. Some even speculated that the supposed victims were former associates or security staff who had disappeared years ago. The FBI denied those claims. Officials confirmed that no human remains or biological evidence were found anywhere on the property. Every soil sample taken from beneath the structure came back clean. Investigators later suggested that the rumor may have started because early reports described a sealed chamber and the scent of decay, details that had been taken out of context. The odor, they clarified, came from stagnant air trapped underground for years, not from decomposing matter. Inside the FBI, focus stayed on the real discovery, the hidden room itself. Whatever had been happening beneath that mansion was deliberate. Everything inside was cataloged, dated, and organized with unusual care. And among the hundreds of photographs taken that day, one image would soon alter the course of the entire case. The photo log entry that changed everything. The photo log entry that changed everything. The review room at the FBI's Digital Analysis Center was quiet except for the steady hum of the computers. A small group of analysts worked through the photos taken from the hidden room beneath Hulk Hogan's mansion. Every image had to be labeled, checked, and stored. For hours, they scrolled through ordinary shots of cabinets, folders, and boxes. Then, one analyst opened a file labeled Photo Log Entry 1173, and the mood in the room changed. The image showed a table inside the underground room. On the table lay a tan folder that no one had paid special attention to during the search. The folder sat slightly tilted toward the camera, its corner bent just enough to reveal the edge of a few papers inside. Across the top, in bold black ink, were the words, "For record." At the bottom of the cover, written faintly in smaller handwriting, was a chilling line. They said the next call would be the last one. The analyst enlarged the image for clarity. The photo, taken with a forensic-grade camera, showed more detail than anyone expected. Under the bent corner, part of a printed picture could be seen, a phone screen showing a missed call from an unknown number. The words, "No caller ID," were scrawled on a note resting beside it. It looked as though Hulk Hogan had been documenting the same mysterious caller who had contacted him in the days before his death. The team paused the review and ordered a full check of the physical evidence. They searched the secured evidence room where all materials from the mansion had been stored and cataloged. Every item was verified against the official inventory, but the tan folder was nowhere to be found. Even more concerning, the printed photo of the phone, the same one seen in entry 1173, was missing as well. The rest of the recovered materials were exactly as logged, but those 2 pieces had disappeared. That discovery sent a shock through the team. Some investigators believed that whoever took the folder must have removed it during the initial collection, taking it before the evidence was sealed. Others suspected the material had been accessed later by someone inside the chain of custody, suggesting an internal breach. Either way, it was clear that someone did not want that folder seen again. When analysts enhanced the original image, faint outlines became visible on the exposed papers. One appeared to show a stack of envelopes labeled with different years. The last one seemed to carry a date written in pencil, July 24th, the day Hulk Hogan was found dead. The marking was faint and could not be confirmed, but the coincidence was impossible to ignore. After that night, Entry 1173 was sealed and restricted. Only a few agents were cleared to view it again. According to unverified accounts, several staff members were quietly reassigned, and the log entry was marked under a new classification. Officially, this was listed as a technical correction. Unofficially, it was the image that broke the timeline and suggested that Hogan's death may not have been random. Reports now suggest that the missing folder may have contained records of threatening calls, private notes, and correspondence linked to the same unknown number from the night before his death. Investigators are still working to connect the remaining clues and trace whoever may have wanted Hulk Hogan gone. For those who have seen it, photo log entry 1173 remains more than just a picture. It is the last trace of a man who may have known he was being watched, and a reminder that the truth behind his final hours may still be waiting to be uncovered. What do you think really happened inside Hulk Hogan's mansion that morning? Was it the tragic end of a legend, or the silencing of something he was never meant to reveal? Share your thoughts in the comments. We would love to hear your theory.